So you can imagine how excited a group of Kiwi aircraft collectors got recently when they seized a chance to buy one of the world's rarest aircraft, a Catalina flying boat. There was just one small catch. They had to fly this World War II plane across the Pacific. Lots of things could go wrong, and as we discovered, lots did.
We searched the world for an aeroplane like this, and this was the only one we found. She's just a good old workhorse, and if you treat her as that, she'll look after you too. We've had tremendous interest around the country from people young and old who know about these aeroplanes. We hope to bring one back so they can all see it and smell it and touch it and fly in it, hopefully.
The Catalina PBY. It was once a common sight in New Zealand skies. 2 squadrons based at Hobsonville did the jobs Orions now do, maritime surveillance and rescue. Even though they were among the slowest, they were also among the toughest and the most successful aircraft of the Second World War. The first Catalinas were designed and built in San Diego 60 years ago, a long-range patrol bomber for the US Navy. It was their range of more than 2,000 kilometres which allowed them to play a vital role in the Battle of the Atlantic, tracking and destroying German U-boats. In the Pacific, they rescued thousands of downed bomber and fighter crews. They became known as Dumbos. The New Zealand squadrons rescued more than 130 servicemen. Tom Neave flew Catalinas for much of the war.
The Catalina, I had 2.5 years on Catalina, did 1,000 hours at a very impressionable part of my life in the Battle of the Atlantic, which was going against us in 1942.
Now Tom's been hired by a syndicate of aviation enthusiasts. His mission, to fly a very rare model of the Catalina they've just bought back to New Zealand from Texas.
So you should be able to establish.
At 72 and still a commercial pilot, Tom Neave must pass the stringent medicals.
So we can trust him flying around the Pacific, can we?
No, there's absolutely no problems with your ECG. As good as it would have been in 1944, Tom.
Tom's cleared for takeoff, but what about the Catalina? After all, it's more than 50 years old.
Not worried about that at all, because I know they'll go. The engines are very reliable. They go on for days virtually. No hassle at all. She'll do it.
They've come to Texas, a little town near Dallas called Denton. And Tom gets his first look at the Catalina that's to take him the long way home.
Will you get choked?
Of the thousands of Catalinas built, few remain. What makes this one extra special is it's one of only 2 left that are registered to carry fare-paying passengers. This aircraft has quite a history. It was once operated by Jacques Cousteau. The CIA used it in the Bay of Pigs operation in Cuba, and it featured in the war film Tora, Tora, Tora. The fuselage appears to be in great shape, but Tom Neave quickly spots trouble.
Where's John? It's too much bloody oil for Pratt & Whitney.
Yeah. Kirk, is it?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Tom Neave.
Hi, Tom. Kirk Broder.
Kirk has flown the aircraft for her previous owner. He'll help the Kiwi crew fly the Catalina back home. But even with his experience, the mission won't be easy.
We got a lot of hard graft in front of us, getting her home.
Before they even leave Denton, Tom Neave must show the local aviation people that he's still able to land this old warhorse on water as well as land. Last time he was at these controls was half a century ago. With the way he's flying today, you'd think it was only yesterday. Catalinas were built to be as much a boat as an aircraft, which enabled them to land in open sea. But at times they got stuck in big seas and couldn't take off again. For Tom Neave, though, this inspection's been a breeze. But there are still doubts about the Catalina. Back on the ground, the oily engine is still misbehaving. New Zealand engineer Tony Butcher has been working on the aircraft for the past month, but is still finding problems. And it's not just the engine that's playing up. Inside, the radios and generators still need attention. Extra fuel is taken on to give the Catalina the range needed on the longer legs of the journey. But the weight of the fuel is critical because it will put added stress on the undercarriage. The crew, trying to keep to a schedule, work on through the night. Now she's ready for the first leg. December the 7th, the anniversary of Pearl Harbor, and the anniversary of Tom Neave's first solo flight 52 years ago. Now he begins the epic journey home in the aircraft he flew in his youth. Tom will be co-piloting the first leg with Captain Kirk.
We have, we've got gear pins.
Gear pins are made. Tail lockers are made.
But even as they take off, the starboard engine is leaving behind a faint plume of black smoke. The journey to New Zealand is expected to take more than a week. The first leg to Los Angeles will last 13 hours, and from there they'll take the old Coral route once flown by the Solent flying boats in the 50s. The Catalina isn't pressurized, so much of the journey is under the clouds.
Yes, sir, and altitude is 4,500 feet. Next stop, or next position report at Abilene in 40 minutes. Abilene,
She's fallen into my hands nicely, actually, and I'm beginning to be one with it, so to speak. The old affection for us coming back.
The crew try out the ferry fuel system. The mechanical pumps just failed, but the hand pump works just fine. When she finally lands in the thick smog in LA, Catalina 045 Juliet is tired and in need of some TLC. During the first long haul, she's developed even more problems, which means another 48 hours work for Tony Butcher and his engineers. Even one of the fuel tanks has sprung a leak. Time for a silicon implant. But Tom Neave is still enthusiastic.
Those engines will drum on through the night and into tomorrow morning and set us down and helo very nicely. and then all the way to Samoa, Fiji and Auckland. She'll just go on and on as long as we keep putting petrol in her.
But there was one thing they hadn't counted on.
Seems it never rains in Southern California.
The worst storm in California all year, but it gives them more time to plan the next leg to Hawaii, 22 hours away. It'll take careful navigation, and on this aircraft, a fair bit of courage. But with the rain came another problem.
We've got a wet magneto. Until it dries out, it's not going to start.
The rain had got into the electrics.
This happens every time when it's rainy and the temperature drops.
All she needed, they reckoned, was a nice dry hangar for the night and some warmth to dry her out.
Ground, Catalina 5404 Juliet, taxi for takeoff, Garrett.
Wonder what's going on with the radios here. All set.
Ready to go? Ready engines.
With the engines running smoothly, everything seems fine. Next stop, Hawaii, just 4,000 kilometers away. But 90 minutes into the flight, the problems begin again.
Weak and almost unreadable. Catalina 04 Juliet. And,
First, the radio.
The radios are weak.
Then, Old Faithful, the starboard engine. The oil temperature is in the red. There's no alternative. They must turn back.
Well, we are still within the easy reach of land. We are turning back for safety reasons.
Now, with the very real possibility of losing an engine, even Los Angeles seems too far away for this heavily laden aircraft. Captain Kirk gives the order: dump the extra fuel.
I'm afraid the next step will be they may force us into declaring an emergency. Catalina 5404 Juliet, ready to copy, and they're fairly readable. Please say it.
They're trying to land in one of the world's busiest airports without clear communications and low power on one engine.
04 Juliet, understand, clear to turn base at this time and clear to land. Everything's ready. You've got 100 knots, 95 knots. Get her slowed up. Slow it up. Load up, 90 knots. Clear, clear, clear. Brakes. Catalina 04 Juliet, we're losing our brakes.
See how close we came from going off the end of the runway?
Tower 04 Juliet.
It's just a few feet over the hill.
The crew have successfully nursed her down. Obviously, this aircraft isn't ready to leave the United States yet. And now, added to the other problems, the nose wheel has partially collapsed. This attempt to get a Catalina back to New Zealand is over. But they'll be back in 1994 to try again.